Hello boys and girls, welcome to my channel. I'm ForClassic and welcome to BenchART. So for today what we do have needed is Star Wars Squadrons. So this game it is developed by Motive Studios and it is using just like pretty much all the EA games, mostly Frostbite free. And this is a dogfighter shooter inside the Star Wars theme, and it's a quite interesting game. If you enjoyed the theme, it is very well done, in fact, and it has been well received by the critics. On Steam, not entirely though, but we'll talk about that later, because in here today we are here to talk about what performance you can expect by playing Star Wars Squadrons on a mere GTX 1650 Super with a Ryzen 5 3600 or 3600X with 16 gigs of DDR4. Alright, so first of all, I'm running this game at 1080p using the Ultra preset. Let me just show to you that right away. So yes, where is the damn graphical options? Oh, it's here. Alright, so wait. Alright, here we go. 1080p. Alright, 60 Hz, which I'm using. And for the settings, I'm using the Ultra preset. There is still one setting in here which you can ramp up, which is ambient occlusion, but I couldn't care less about it. So the recommended settings it is for you to have an i7 from the 7000 generation or a Ryzen 7 from the 2000 generation. I think it's a little bit absurd because I don't think that this game uses that much CPU, although I have to agree that the recommendation for 16 gigs of RAM it is correct, since this game uses a ton of RAM. So also for the graphic card, if you are not going to use VR, the game recommends a GTX 1060, which our 1650 Super, it is pretty much at the same level or even better, despite it has less VRAM. So let's starting off with 1080p. All these results are without recording. So 1080p Ultra presets, I got an average of 128 frames per second with a 1% low of 103. So very playable indeed. I also decided to try out 1440p, and I decided to start with Ultra, and I've noticed that the frame rate did dip below 60 frames per second, so I decided to also test the game with the high settings at 1440p, and by doing this I got a better result with the high settings with frame rate over 60 frames per second. Also, I was curious about 4K, so I gave it a try. So I started with Ultra and high settings, and both of these two settings, provide an experience lower than 60 frames per second. I was hoping for median settings to provide a higher frame rate, but unfortunately the results with median settings comparing to the high settings were very similar. Keep in mind that the maps where I did try out the game were different because I wasn't really able to choose the same maps on multiplayer, and as you know, it's hard to benchmark the same thing because on multiplayer it is not really possible. I tried to avoid the lightweight maps, so I would just leave the match to try to get a more demanding map, but still I didn't notice too much of an improvement between high and medium. So my recommended settings for you to play this game it is to stick up with 1080p Ultra settings or 1440p high settings. Since this game it is very competitive in multiplayer, I don't really recommend you to go above than this, because all the other settings, for example 1440p Ultra or 4K at medium, high or Ultra, does have drops below 60 frames per second, and since that the majority of the big deal about this game it is really the multiplayer, I don't really see a reason for you to choose demanding options and not enjoy an experience above 60 frames per second. So that's why I do recommend you to stick up with 1080p maximum or Ultra or 1440p high settings. So performance wise, this game it isn't really that demanding, but probably this is because this game was also thought about adding support for VR, so which means that if you have a Oculus Rift or anything like it, you can play this game with virtual reality. I'm not really sure if the GTX 1650 Super it is the best graphic card for virtual reality, but so this really shows up that this game probably it isn't really that demanding because people with virtual reality or virtual reality stuff need to have a lightweight game so they can run properly anyway. But that's it. But I mean, what about the game? This is an EA game, alright? And probably it is full of microtransactions, right? Well, in fact, it is not. That's the surprising part. EA games have been known for all these years because of adding multiple microtransactions on Star Wars games and stuff like that. And in fact, at least at the moment of this video, there is no microtransaction. I wouldn't be shocked if they added microtransactions along the line, like in some couple of months or something. I wouldn't be surprised, and that thing would be a very, very bad move for the EA, but I wouldn't be surprised since they are kind of those type of guys that do that. But still, at the moment, no microtransactions. All the stuff that you unlock, skins and I would say probably perks, stuff that you unlock are all unlocked by playing the game and not by paying more for the game, which is something really strange for EA games, but that's very nice. Also, the game, it doesn't really have a full price launch, so instead of costing like $50 or $60, it costs $40. If you live in Europe, it is 40 euros. So I think it's a nice price indeed. And also, despite this game have multiplayer, which it is what I'm using in here. I'm using the regular dogfight, which is pretty much 5 against 5. There is still a fleet thing where you need to destroy the fleet ship of the enemy, and the enemy needs to destroy your fleet ship. I mean, there is also a story mode, which some of the people on Steam really say it is a little bit boring, doesn't really add anything, then that the AI, it is dumb as hell. But still, there is a story mode which should take up for you to you know, to have gameplay of 7 to 10 hours. So I'm using gamepad in here. Not all the people are really keen to play with a gamepad on this game. Some people do recommend mouse and keyboard. Some other people say that it is impossible to play with mouse and keyboard. I myself had a little bit trouble to adapt to play with the gamepad. I had to make a lot of changes on the key mappings of the game. The good thing is that it allowed me to select every key of the gamepad. Not all the games let you customize that, but it does allow to customize that. So it is fine, just play the way that you want. It would be great. This game have a lot of different levels of difficulty, so you can select and adjust, but it can be a little bit tough. So this game have a lot of ships which you can select. They work as squads, no, classes I mean. So each ship have its own abilities or speed or resistance or power. So it's a little bit like classes on Battlefield. So each one have its own ability or perk. The same thing goes to this game, but for the ships or the, you know, this. Each one also you can customize the way that you drive the ships. For example, you can bump up more speed into the ship in the middle of the fight, as well as enable more resistance, like a shield or something to prevent from receiving too much damage. But when you choose each type of stuff on fly, you are kind of getting also disadvantages. For example, when you select speed, you don't have enough resistance. When you select like resistance, you don't get enough speed. Your ship gets hard to control. You can customize every stuff in on fly by pressing some sort of keys. There are lock-on attacks which acts as missiles. You also have the flares to disperse the missiles. And yeah, it's a quite interesting game, and so far what I have tried, it worked pretty well. So despite the Steam reception, it is not being great because not all the people are satisfied with the game. The complaints are mostly relatable with the maps. Some maps are too empty. Some other people complain about balance. I'm not really so sure about that, but about the maps I have to agree. There are maps that doesn't have anything. This one that I'm playing in here at the moment, it is amazing. It is a nice map where you need to perform awesome maneuvers. It's a very interesting map, but many other maps are just nothing at all. It's just an empty space with a skybox and nothing at all. to offer. All right, so yeah, I have to agree on that. But apart from that, I think the game works pretty great, and the critics have been giving this game the score of 81, so I would say that it is perfectly fine, and if you enjoy Star Wars and dogfighting style, this game, it is completely mandatory for you. Alright guys, so guys, I think that's all that I want to talk about Star Wars Squadrons. Hope you keep enjoying the rest of the video, and I do hope to see you soon. Goodbye.
Incoming missile. Enemy locked on.
They're following you.
Missile launched. Titan 4, what would you do without me? Worry about yourself next time. Doesn't try harder than that.
Do you feel alive? I do. We're halfway to victory, but it's close. Don't get complacent now.